Oh, good morning, and Monday morning. Oh, Monday morning blues. Yes, I guess it was always Monday morning blues. A lot of people they just enjoyed the weekend so much that they didn't like going back to work. It's very difficult to enjoy the weekend at the moment because there's not much difference between being at home and getting up and going to the office. I'm lucky; I can come into the studio. It's only a spit from where I live. And I must say that it's totally COVID free because it's only me coming in. And I've been tested 2 or 3 times now and I'm okay. So let's hope, for me anyway, that it stays that way. And I hope it stays that way for you because this is a nasty piece of work that we're up against. Let's just take a look at one or two of the things that are going on. And one of the things that the rest of the country is suffering, and I just checked with the weather people a moment ago, and they say that we're going to have actually sun all day today. But do be careful because there is a lot of ice around. And if it's black ice, of course, you can't see it. And away you go, it skids. And that's what causes accidents. So be careful out there. Whereas the rest of the country was something like this.
What they're doing? Maybe he's been stuck or what? So I don't really know what we're going to come across up here.
Pretty grim. And there are some parts of the country that can expect another 6 inches. I mean, that's a lot of snow. And temperatures plummeting to -10. Now, I doubt if that's going to happen in Lewis or anywhere nearby. But as we get closer and closer, London has already had its first dusting. Brighton apparently got a snowflake or two. And we are in with a chance of it happening, but not likely today. Likely today is there's going to be some sunshine, although, of course, at this hour in the morning, looking outside, it's pitch black indeed. So watch out for the weather. Uh, it's you'd like to break into a song, wouldn't you? Never mind the weather, as long as we're together. But the trouble is with the COVID lockdown is we can't be together, not with those people that we love and cherish, and it's a bit wearing. And the older you are, the worse it gets because much of those people of mature age it is memories, and it is memories of their early life, and then their children and their grandchildren, and those relatives, if you like, who can bring wonders to the pleasure that older people experience. They can't. Yeah, there's some sort of rule there if it's a family, but if you're in different parts of the country, it doesn't help. You can't travel. You can't travel indeed, and there are some sort of nasty things that are turning up with COVID, and I wish I could report quite the opposite. However, our good friend Mick Symes, as always, right on the button. It's in Lewis Present, which is his Facebook page, where people can gather and tell stories about Lewis. He's posted the fact that England are well on the way to taking the next test against Sri Lanka. They were 20 or 30 runs behind in the first innings, but now they've reduced Sri Lanka to something like 31 for 6 or some astonishing figure. So as he put, good news. And that really is going back to the old days, isn't it? Because we used to avidly turn on the television, or avidly turn on the radio to find out how England were doing in the test. Well, they're doing okay. So that's one thing that's back to normal. But I'm afraid that it is not good news on other fronts.
Pete Brown has written more than half a dozen books on pubs and beer.
Cheers.
He says there's a lot at stake here.
I think pubs are an essential factor in British life. I think it
For
defines
centuries, pubs have been a place to mingle, read a book, and these days, even take the kids.
the British have, and everything about the pub is micro-engineered to break down those social barriers and to enable people to talk to each other.
Now you're comfy, because you wanted a chair, didn't you, darling?
Roxy Beaujolais
This place fits all types.
has presided at her pub, the Seven Stars, for 20 years.
Now, the forecast is, or the prediction is, that pubs will not open until at least July. I mean, that probably is almost a year without them, because when they were allowed to open before, they were restaurants with very, very strict regulations. No bellying up to the bar, no talking to your pals, no finding out what the local gossip was. You had to sit at a table, and those who sat at the table with you had to be in your bubble, as it were. This is no sort of saying to somebody in the street, "Hey, I'll buy you lunch." Not that I ever did, but there's none of that. And so, will some of these pubs reopen? Well, the answer is, of course, no. Some pubs will not reopen. And if it is July, of course, our habits change. And one of the experts that was involved in the making of that little video clip says that it's already changed. In fact, that clip was called "The Death of the English Pub," that we have started to view things differently now, that wine bars and other forms of entertainment and getting a drink have taken over from the traditional pub. Now, that saddens me, because one of the things that people overseas travel here for is to go to an English pub. And if we haven't got any left, it'll be like the telephone boxes and the red buses and the red post boxes. Is all will have disappeared. And those are icons of British life, icons that thousands and thousands of people came to Britain to watch, to look at, and to say, "My goodness me, look, they've still got it." This is still, I mean, hopefully we won't lose the White Cliffs of Dover, another icon, if you like, of people coming from overseas. But we do have to, I'm just checking on the time, it's 07:08, so 7 on Monday morning, the 25th of January, and where has this month gone? In some ways, I can't wait to see the end of it. It has been a very tough month for Mirador Television. It has been a very tough month for a lot of other businesses as well. In fact, some won't make it past the finishing post for January, and I feel sorry about that, because some of them are genuine, really genuine businesses that we need. But one way or another, and let's not blame the government, but it seems that the regulations are made by people who haven't really lived in the real world. And as a consequence, what they do is they manage to trap the entrepreneurial people, the people with the spirit to take a chance. They trap them outside any assistance whatsoever. And those of us who are like that, we could do with help. We've got costs, and our income, our revenue has dipped like everybody else. And so we are struggling to get to the finishing post. But I really feel sorry for those people who have been in business for years and years and years, and have found that with all the money that's been lavished, it has not been lavished on them. Whether the government will do anything about it, I don't know. I think that they're impervious to it. They live in their little bubble up there, and I'm not so sure about the local lot either. They are bound by a lot of regulations. I suppose my very nature is to follow the old adage, rules of the observance of fools and the guidance of wise men. And I think if I was involved with local authority, local government, I would be saying to the central government, stuff it. We've got special needs here. We know what we want. We know our patch, and we're going to do it. But, it's easy to sit on the outside and say to a civil servant, "That's what you should be doing. Go on, break the rules." But the rules are also implacable about them. They break the rules too often, and that's their job gone. And one can't argue with that. One can't really argue with that. The politicians, that's different, but they've become almost an irrelevance today. I mean, they claim all sorts of things. It doesn't really come down to them. It's either central government or the people that run the council offices and so on. They're generally the power. So it's a sad situation. But one of the things that we can do is we can look forward to whether the pub's open or not. Hopefully, some of these places will open, and we're lucky enough to be associated with them, and they with us on Mirador Television.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at, and they're just beautiful items at really affordable prices.
Well, I hope that we're back, and I hope that you can hear me. There are all sorts of funny things, to mute the mic and mute the picture and all the rest of it, and you're never quite sure what it's telling you, particularly when you really don't have time to breathe, trying to pass on news and information. One of the big fights in terms of COVID at the moment is whether the children should go back to school. And I'm quite sure that you have a view on that. And if you want to express your view, and if you want to come on Mirador Television Lewis, and express your view, drop us a line at Mirador Talk. Mirador Talk? No. I'll get the right one. When we've got another break, I'll get it, or I'll look on here. How silly that I've forgotten what it is. That's me, I'm afraid. My memory doesn't stretch to even the simplest of things. But we do have an invitation, and there is an email for you to get in touch with us, and we will come back to you, and we'll, if there is a slot available, we'll offer that slot for you to come on and chat either to me or to Mark Paton, and express your opinion. And it doesn't have to be about anything that we're talking about. Everybody's got an opinion. Please do come and join us. I know it's early in the morning, but it can be a lot of fun. And we do want to hear what you have to say. We've got several people, including me, on this channel who are not afraid of expressing their opinions. And indeed, we do quite freely. But we also believe that everybody should have a say. We don't expect everybody to fall in line with us. We don't expect everybody to agree with us. So do take advantage. And we have changed our face on Facebook. Face on Facebook. We are now on Mirador Television Lewis. Mirador Television Lewis. And we are also now going out live on YouTube. And that is Mirador Television on YouTube. If you tap into Mirador Television, you'll find it'll come up and it will show you the way so that you can watch on YouTube. And we're delighted that we can do that. And we will be expanding that even more as we go along. And that's the local version. Our international version still goes out to Patagonia and points east. So there is plenty to see there. And I hope that you'll join us. Take a look, take a yell. And what we call our program, our local program, is Shout It Loud. Shout it loud, Lewis is great. Shout it loud, Mirador television is great, because there is a great big world out there just waiting to know all about us. And why not? Why not get to know about Lewis? I did a documentary, which some of you may have seen, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. And it's 8 half-hour episodes, and we hadn't got enough room to get everything in. We're going to make a second one. That is, if COVID will let us. This is an exciting and an interesting town, and it is time that we actually let the world know it. And when we when we put together the mayor of Lewis, Delaware, and the mayor of Lewis in here, John Lamb, and had them chat, it went wild in the States. They were very anxious to find out what we were doing. And it's 16 minutes past, and in a little secret thing that I've got, I can see that Jane Watkins has popped up. Jane is fairly new to us, but some of you may have seen the fact that she has been teaching people how to do various things at home, making various things. And I have to say various things because I'm so useless at that sort of thing, I wouldn't even know how to even begin. But Jane is coming on to have a chat this morning. But not only that, but Jane is joining us, and she's a very fine lady, I may say. When she came for an interview, I said, I think I want you on our television station. She is very funny, but also she's doing this because we are trying very hard at Mirador to make sure that people are lonely, who are lonely, don't feel the loneliness, that they can feel that there are things that they could do that will make them feel less lonely. And Jane is very good at that. I stumble and stutter about such things. Before I go to Jane, though, I'm going to go one more story, and let's go to one overseas, because this gentleman has left his office, but he's muttering threats. Yes, he's out, and he left, not very politely. Mind you, I admire his cheek. It's with about 10 minutes to go. He hopped onto Air Force One and said, "Take me home. I'm still the president." So it had to take off and take him home. But he's now formed a party called the Patriot Party, and he is sort of saying to those Republicans that he felt betrayed him at the last minute, "I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. Come on, baby, or whatever." There, you can tell that it's early morning on a Monday because with me, there she is. Good
Hello.
morning.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad at all. I didn't feel that way about an hour ago when the alarm went, and I thought, "Oh no, I got to get up. I've got to give up." I've been about 75, 85, 95 years. It's about time that I slept in. Anyway, people will be soon used to that face. Your program is going on the Mirador International. Unfortunately, at this particular stage, can't put up programs to about more than 3 or 4 minutes. And I said, "Well, can I put up a little bit of the Jane's program?" And Claudine, who worked closely with you to put the program together, said, "You're certainly not. You're not going to tamper with Jane's program." So I can't show it, but it is blasting out on Mirador Television. That's miradortelevision.com, or if you've got a smartphone, you can find it on the App Store or on any of Apple, Roku, Amazon Fire, and one or two more as well. So do take a look at Jane's program. Well, Jane, tell us basically, since we can, well, I'm glad that we got you live to talk to. Tell us what your program is all about.
Well, the first program is entitled Jane Gets Crafty. So it's basically about me either finding things at home or getting things free or buying things sometimes on social media and renovating them or turning them into something else, something more useful. So the first program, I had some pieces of foam lying around the house, which I decided to recover and use for bench seats for the garden. Well, for the summer, for the garden. Yesterday, I've just finished. Somebody was doing a house clearance and advertised that they were putting all this furniture outside their house. And I got hold of a Lloyd Loom linen box, Ottoman box, which unfortunately it was pouring with rain when I picked it up. And so I've now got some fabric, recovered the top, which I've just finished doing a little film clip of that. I've also done something about making a rag rug. So my COVID project, my year project has been to do a rag rug, which I've never done before. And I'm on the home stretch. I've nearly
Well, are you able to... I'm just when the phone goes ping, I'm never sure whether it's somebody who's going to phone and say, "Oh, guess what? I want to talk to you." But I'm all fingers and thumbs. If I said I'll tune into Jane because I'm feeling lonely and I think that it would be nice for me to learn something, can you take people like me one step at a time and teach us how to do these things?
Yes, I can do. In fact, yesterday I just filmed for upholstery, talked a little bit about the tools that I was using, because like any trade or anything that you do, you kind of pay for what you get. So I was talking about staple guns, because some time ago I bought a really cheap staple gun and it's absolutely hopeless. The staples never go into the wood, they bend. So I was saying about investing in a really good quality heavy duty staple gun that's got some power behind it, that the staples will go through, because some woods are harder than others. Pine, for example, is very soft, so it's quite easy to get tacks and things in through pine, but other hardwoods can be a bit tricky. So slowly, step by step, about what's good to buy and what isn't.
Everybody on Mirador has to be multi-talented because otherwise we go belly up. We try to do programs that demand 20 people with about 5 of us. But you're also something of a comedian.
Yeah, well, I think my dad's very funny, and my family, we laugh a lot. And I think in the first lockdown, how it came about was, I had a little part in a play in Bexhill, and the director said to me, "Can you speak with a Yorkshire accent?" And I said, "I don't know, but I kind of watched a few programs of people and TV programs from listening to people with a Yorkshire accent, and so ended up being in this play with a Yorkshire accent." And at the end of the play, afterwards at the bar, this lady came up to me. She said, "Are you from Harrogate?" I was going, "No, I live in Sussex." She said, "Are you sure you're not from Harrogate?" I said, "No." She said, "Oh, you just sound like you're from Harrogate." So I thought, oh, well, obviously it worked. And so in the first lockdown in March, really just to amuse my family and friends, I stuck a wig on and became Maggie from Harrogate. And on Fridays, I did this little clip live called Maggie's Mayhem, just about lockdown, how we're feeling, what I was doing at home. And even though my family are actually Welsh, my sister said, "You should do it with a Welsh accent." And I said, "No." So it's kind of gone from there. And I just chat about things that are happening around me, or things that I see in the street, or stuff that makes me laugh. And then I thought, maybe nobody will laugh, because we all find things. I find things funny that other people might not. But my niece actually sent me a message and did say it was really funny. They were laughing out loud about things.
That's good. Well, you deal with Claudine. When are we going to see some of this other side of you?
Well, I did record a little clip which I've sent to Claudine.
Right.
So, it's work in progress.
Okay. Well, hurry up, because people need to, as you say, you laugh a lot and your family laugh a lot. And I think one of the things that we try very hard to do on this program is make people laugh a lot. I mean, we always say, if you want a nice, smooth broadcast, go to the BBC or ITV or whatever. But by the time that we finished actually mucking about and getting things wrong and so on, we're like, do you remember or do you know who Jack DeManio was?
No, I don't.
No, it's amazing. You have to be a Jack DeManio fan, I think. But in the 1960s, he was. We didn't call him DJs in those days, but he was a key presenter at the BBC, and he couldn't get anything right. He never gave the right date, the right time, the right train times, or anything, and he became so famous for it that one day he did, and nobody would believe him. But he once made a great gaffe at the BBC, and he said nobody said anything, nobody criticized me. He said I just went in and I collected my paycheck, but I wasn't on the roster for 6 months. Anyway, I'm sure that we try to make people laugh if we can by our antics, and I'm delighted that you've joined us. Just before we go and we move on to other things, Jane, quite seriously, people are lonely, and we've said that we will try hard to give pointers on Mirador on things that you can do to ease the burden of loneliness. Have you got any pointers? Of course you have. Will you share them with us?
Yeah, well, I live on my own, and I think it doesn't matter what age you are. It's been really tough at times, and I think actually this year I've spoken to more people this year than I have in the last, possibly because I've had more time at home to reconnect. So I do every 2 weeks, if you've got social media, I do a Zoom chat with friends, and we regularly chat, and they all live around all over the country. So that's really great. Try and do stuff or connect with people who may be like-minded. You could if you'd like to read books, maybe do a book club, that type of thing. I recently saw somebody who knits, a lady in her 80s, so I've done a little clip about that. She's been knitting blankets. Just try and reconnect. Even pick up the phone, even if you don't have a laptop or any social stuff. There's still the telephone. Pick up people and have a chat, because some days can be terribly long. I mean, some days I think I'm just filling time. It's terrible. But, stay positive, and we've all got to get through it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the more that we can, what we have said, and you can see brave Jane there, we've said, if you feel that you can contribute to Mirador, join us and help put out this television program. We need some volunteers to do all sorts of things. And Jane is quite willing to help you along to show you how to present. I used to know how to do it, but with age, it's escaped me now. I just do it in the lazy, sloppy way. But there are things that we need. We keep on saying, and nobody has responded yet. Perhaps people don't have the courage, or perhaps they're so tired with coffee. But we need somebody with a brass neck, somebody who's not afraid to pick up the phone and phone number 10 and say, "Will you please get Mr. Johnson on? It's Mirador Television calling." And work their way down from there, because we want to bring to this local program, which is an early morning program for people in Lewis and district. And I'll get around to the district in a moment. But we do want to bring things from outside. We've always said we are local, but not parochial. And some of the things that are happening in the rest of the world some of the things that are happening locally, or not so locally in the UK, are pertinent to local. And we want to bring those sort of things and be able to give a chance for us to all chat about them. We're in our infancy because we only started live last Wednesday, this program, but we would like to really push it ahead and get a few people on. And happily, Jane is on this morning, and I probably will disturb her again towards the end of the week and ask her to come back. And if possible, Jane, perhaps we can have a clip of your funny show so that people know what they can expect.
Okay,
But for the moment, sorry?
I'll speak to Claudine, see if we can get it put on, yes.
That'd be great. But for the moment, do tap into miradortelevision.com or get the app on your phone. It's quite easy. You just go to the App Store and you tap in Mirador Television, and down comes a little helmet, and there it is. You can go tap, and you get all the nonsense that we put out. But it's sort of fun nonsense. At least that's what about 15,000 people tell us. So we're not doing too badly, I think. So people can see you. You're going out as we speak, I think. Jane, I switched you on. I switched on last night, and who popped up the very first thing is with you. So
I was trying to get it set up.
Plenty around, and eventually we'll be able to perhaps show more of our programs, because we have Stephen Catlin, who delves into local politics. We have Leslie Hills, who paints local celebrities, and we try to bring them alive. She paints them, and we go and talk to them. So there are lots of local things that we do that we'd like to show you on this particular program. For the moment, we can't, but that's okay. It keeps on moving forward. It keeps on developing. So, Jane, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you. Other people who are not watching this program can go and watch you on our other channel. But for the moment, we'll say toodle pip and good luck in case it. And you're in Hastings, aren't you?
I actually live in Hastings. Yes.
Yes. Is it snowing there?
No, it's not. It's incredibly cold. But no, we haven't had snow quite yet. But it's very cold.
So some of the country are going to get 6 inches today, they say, and it's going to drop to -10. But certainly for Lewis, I didn't look at Hastings this morning. Certainly for Lewis, it's going to be sunny all day.
Oh yeah, you might escape.
All right, darling.
Okay,
see you later.
Bye.
Bye. Well, there we are. Let's go and take a look at one of the nice people that gives support.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewis.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
And why not indeed? Why not take a little visit once we're out of lockdown? It is difficult to say. We're still getting mixed signals. We hope that things will be back to some sort of normality by Easter, but then nothing's going to happen much before July. And it may be years before we get rid of this. I mean, life is very difficult to predict at the moment. Very difficult to know what's going to happen. And we hope that those people that we're showing you, who normally would be there waiting to greet you through their doors, will be able to do so within a very short period of time, because entrepreneurs can't keep going forever. And some of us fall through the cracks when it comes to getting some sort of support from government. And the one lot, and I want to see reform, I really do. the one lot that have no sympathy whatsoever, the banks. Oh, the retail banks. Well, they say, oh, we're here to help you. Yeah, what they mean is that they've got pictures on the floor of the local branch so that you stay at the right distance behind somebody to make sure you don't catch the dreaded virus. But yeah, but they just carry on the same. And actually, of course, they're not run by humans anymore. There isn't such a thing as a bank manager left. It's all computers, and it's all going haywire. And if they don't get their fingers slapped very, very hard by the government, then there is something absolutely wrong. Bankers will not, by nature, they're very conservative, and they stay with what they know is going to make them money. And they are not at all socially inclined. And I think that they're giving a lot of us a very bad time. In the old days, I was a pound over the weekend. I got at least 6 emails telling me. And, the thing is that, okay, they're saying we'll be helpful. We're letting you know that you need to put some money in to make sure this account is secure. And that's fair enough, but 6 times. And normally I would have gone in this morning and I'd have said, hello, Joe. And he would have said, hello, Keith, how's the television going? And we'd had a little chat. And he said, oh, tut, 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 tut. Yes, you're a bit over. Why don't we actually extend it by 25 quid for another 3 or 4 days until you're back able to put that money in? Oh, does that happen? No. And if you live in the villages, there aren't any branches left to go and talk like that. And in some of them, there aren't even machines to dispense cash for you. That's how supportive of the community the banks were. And nobody said much because we were all rolling in lolly. Well, we're not all rolling in lolly now. This pandemic has had a very, very bad effect. And, the politicians are just as bad. Because they keep on with silly nonsense, and they wait for trouble, and then suddenly, who comes along but Mrs. Sturgeon, and what does she want to do? Oh, we've got to get away from the Brits. We've got to get away from the English. Scotland must escape. It must separate. And she's on it again.
In order to reduce the risk of more of this strain being imported into Scotland, we intend to maintain a strict travel ban between Scotland and the rest of the UK. Unfortunately, and I am genuinely sorry about this, that ban will remain in place right throughout the festive period. We simply cannot risk more of this new strain entering the country if we can possibly avoid it. That means people from Scotland not visiting other parts of the UK and vice versa. Cross-border travel for all but the most essential purposes is not permitted.
Well, she's talking about COVID there, but on top of that, she's been ranting and raving about Scotland leaving the UK. I must say that in some ways, I find it a bit difficult not to disagree with her. This chair is not the most comfortable. I must complain to the management. I find it a bit difficult not to agree with her to some extent, because I believe that we merge and we make bigger a lot of things, and one of them is the railways, for one thing. We merge them, and I'm not so sure that they are better. But another is local health practices. I mean, the NHS is becoming a monster. And while individually nurses and doctors are just excellent, we get excellent treatment. That I'm not complaining about. But now I find it very difficult because our local surgeries have all become one. And with the argument that, well, now we can do it, we can get our own big equipment and we can do much bigger things. Well, that may be true. But I don't talk to my doctor the way I used to, and I really do feel isolated from them. I don't feel that I've got a friend down at the clinic anymore. And I had a very, very good GP. But I have got a letter that says that I've got a dedicated GP, and I stick to it. But sometimes it means if I'm dying on a Monday, is I have to hold off dying until Thursday because I can't talk to my GP about it, because that's the earliest that I can possibly see her. because of this new system, this new scheme. But anyway, that was Nicola and preaching devolved government. Devolved government is quite good in some ways, and that was the big problem with the EU, that it didn't understand devolved government the way that the Americans do, and the way that the Canadians do, and the way the Australians do, and to some extent the way the South Africans do, members of the old Commonwealth, where in fact in Ottawa you have certain powers to deal internationally, but the various provinces have a lot of power over things like education and transport and mining and so on. And in the United States, it's the same. And one of the things that has become clear talking to our colleagues in New York, Melissa and Susanna, what we have found is they're able to say, well, it varies from state to state the way that people are handling a lockdown. New York will do one thing and New Jersey will do another, and that they have the power and the authority to do that and reflect the wishes of their people. And it's not a bad system at all. So devolution isn't too bad, but splitting entirely and becoming another country has got to be nuts. I'm sorry, it has. It really has. That's where things would get difficult. We're finding things that are wrong with having left the EU. Sure that we'll work our way through and it'll all be all right. But I mean, surely if our politicians don't recognize that by splitting again, we're going to have real problems, then I just simply do not know where they're coming from. Now, a couple of things about the vaccine. They say that we are leading the world in terms of getting everybody vaccinated. And it is going great guns. There are some problems in some areas. But generally speaking, they're doing quite well. And one must pat on the shoulder, because the word coming out of parts of Europe and parts of other parts of the world is that there are a whole host of holdups, and the vaccine isn't being made as freely available as it is here. Having said that, we posted yesterday, I think it was, 100,000th death from the virus, from the pandemic. So that's a problem in itself. And we really do have to be very careful that we don't get things out of balance. It is a dreadful, dreadful enemy. I don't know whether to call it a disease or an infection or what. It's an enemy. And it's driven us to living a life that we've never expected we would have to live again. And I say live again because I'm a war baby. I lived a few years in post-war Britain, and I knew what rationing was about, and I knew that there are lots of things that you couldn't get. I can remember queuing up for ice cream. It's with my luck always the same. I always just got there when the last one was sold. But the word would go around, there's ice cream for sale, ice cream for sale. And everybody would rush to get ice cream because it wasn't generally available the way it is now. And I can remember when rationing came off sweets again, 1952 or 53. They took sweets off rationing, and I had to put it back on another month or so later because all the shops had nothing to sell. Everybody just went, because they never had the chance to have anything other than passing a few coupons, food coupons over, and that was the amount of sweets, candies, whatever you call them nowadays, you're able to get. One coupon, 1/4. And my late wife, who's a Canadian, loved going into one of the local shops in Lewis because it kept everything in bottles, in the old-fashioned way. And she loved being able to say, can I have 1/4 of this and 1/4 of that? And I must say, it is sort of fun. There are one or two places left where you can get them still in bottles, and you can order them by 1/4. What is it, 4 ounces? It's take it away in a little bag, and off you go, and you sit and eat your 1/4 of sweets. Anyway, those are the sort of conditions that we got used to. But a lot of relatively mature people have never had to experience that sort of thing, and so it hits them harder. They've been so used to going to the store and getting what they want. And now we're talking about shortages, where we're talking about things not becoming available. It's going to be a pretty horrible time, and particularly is you can't just walk into the store anymore. I have to, because I've got something a tender back. I have to pick the time to go to the supermarket, and partly because I don't want to be around people too close when I'm shopping. But also, I don't want to stand in a queue because my back gives out long before I ever get into the store. So it forces me to shop at 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night. It's okay, I don't mind. But a lot of people would find that inconvenient. A lot of people are looking after the children, they're looking after the family. They've got other things to do at that time of night. And those are the sort of things which we're having rapidly to become used to. But one of the things that I think that is a big guffaw, if you like, going back to Jane and the fact that we like to laugh and all, is that the Facebook, as you know, once again, they're like the banks. They're not ruled by humans. They're ruled by algorithms. I think they call them algorithms, who they sense things on a computer and they reject or allow them. And Google or Facebook or one of the giants has had to, I think it's Facebook, has had to apologize to people in Brighton because it's been rejecting Devil's Dyke as being an obscene word or not acceptable word. So Devil's Dyke, a tourist spot, a wonderful place, has not. It just simply it was rejected. But 3 or 4 years ago, we put up a piece of a video which we wanted to put on Facebook, and these were in the very early days, and it was a piece of video of our war memorial in the middle of Lewis, and it rejected it as being obscene. And if you actually look at that, it's a fine monument, really, although it's very simple. But at the base, there are some bronzed, I think it's bronze ladies, and they are draped, as indeed they would in Greek mythology, with scarves barely covering their breasts. And the algorithm had picked up the fact that there must be a breast in this thing somewhere and had dubbed it obscene, which is absolutely ridiculous. Now, well, they did apologize then, and they have apologized about Devil's Dyke since. But I mean, where on earth the computers and so on are taking us? Oh, I have to be very careful because I can be very silly, and I can say, "Oh, computers this and computers that," but it is, of course, computing that allows me to broadcast live from our own little studio to you on your own little computer. And we couldn't do that 5 years ago. It is the development of computers and companies like Facebook and so on to be able to allow this to happen, and the people who own YouTube. So yes, of course, it's a double-edged sword. But some things it can get a bit silly, and it gets rather spiteful, and that's when people of a certain age. I'm like well. All my friends say, Keith, you're tough as old boot. and the other little saying is that things run off my like a duck's water off my back. Oh, then I just get that screwed over. But there are lots of very sensitive people who won't sort of just get temporarily annoyed, but find that this is harassment and that they are being intimidated by these big boys. And it really isn't fair. Let's see, 7:49. I think we should let somebody have a little say. Yeah. Let's try it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Elisa from Catching Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catcher and Tales. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday, to come by and see us anytime.
Now, Lewis is famous for its little shops like that, its little cafes, and its little restaurants. We do have some chain restaurants, of course, but we also have a number of local stores run by entrepreneurs who do a really nice job and make it a unique town. So do support them the moment that they're back able to serve you after the lockdown is lifted. Although at the moment it looks as if that lockdown is going to last, and particularly for the pubs, could be until July. There are some the cabinet ministers who are quite adamant that if we release things too early, what we'll do is we'll release another splurge of the virus, which will kill. And despite the vaccine, and don't be fooled by the having the vaccine, it helps protect you. But if you go and do damn silly things after you've had it, it's not fully protective. And there are people doing damn silly things. The police are arrested. I think it's a £200 fine, if I'm not mistaken. I made a note somewhere. A £200 fine or £300 fine for people who went to an illegal rave. And on the other side, there were fines handed out for people who went snowballing, who went and played snowballs and went sledging in the snow. Traditional things that we've always done. And I think that perhaps that's where the police were a bit heavy-handed. I can't really see that a snowball fight is going to pass on as long as you stay well away from each other. And as for sledging, well, down you go, and you've got the wind in your hair. And it really is, well, refreshing. And wind is supposed to help blow this thing away. I have to say, sledging is fine, but I've only once been on a bobsleigh. And I've never felt so out of control of anything in my life. So I'm a little bit worried, if you like, about the sledging and so on. It depends how steep the hill is and how smooth or good the sledge is. But certainly it is a great deal of pleasure, and I think we've got to worry a little bit about that. But generally speaking, we are still under the gun, and the battle rages still whether schools should reopen. I must confess is that being a bit aged and not able to be cognitive about some sort of debates, it does seem to me that I don't quite understand how we can say that everybody should stay locked away and then send our children into an area where they are likely to mingle. And there are a lot of argument amongst the experts. I mean, some say children don't pass it on, and others say, ha, ha, ha. There are plenty of examples where they do. I just simply don't know. I did write myself a blog the other day, and I didn't actually post it simply because I was worried some people might find it offensive. But my argument was really that should I really worry about being locked down? That in Roman times, because of disease and other accidents of the environment, the average age for a Roman was 40 something. And now it was 80 something. And for a little while, just before lockdown, the experts were saying we would go on and on and on, and people would live longer and longer and longer. Well, some other experts have come along and said, no, we probably reached as the average age that we can live to now. And it will be somewhere around 80. But nonetheless, should we really say, do we want to lead life like this and take the chance and out we go? But of course, the thing is, then, if you do that, you stand a chance of murdering somebody else. And I don't suppose I really want on my grave he murdered 10,000 people because of his foolishness. It is a very, very difficult philosophical and political, yes, and thoughtful question to debate. Where are we? 7:55. 5 minutes, and then we should have Mark Paton with us, with any luck, if he can link in, and he's pretty good at it. So 2 or 3 things in the news this morning. First of all, let's just take another look at this because
What they're doing? He's been stuck or what? So I don't really know what we're going to come across up here.
That was part of northern England yesterday. And they are said to be expecting another 6 inches of snow and temperatures plunging to -10 again today. Our own forecast in this particular area, and I'm looking out of the studio window now, and it is quite a beautiful morning. But our own forecast is that we shall have bright skies for most of today. It is going to deteriorate as the week goes on. But nobody quite knows whether it will be snow or whether it will be drizzly rain. I suppose most of us would say wish it would be snow because drizzly rain is adding just to the general feeling of despair and unhappiness brought on by this wretched enemy at our gates, the COVID-19, I believe it's called. Let's see, must get back to school is another issue. And those are the things that are a big debate. Shall we or shan't we? If you've got any views, please email us at Mirador and let us know what your thoughts are. And if you want to, email us and say, I'd like to come on the program. I've got a few thoughts because we'd be very happy for you to do so. We had 3 people lined up to come on the show this morning, and 2 of them found that it was a bit early for them. So we've got into the habit now, because we don't go to work, of having a few extra minutes in bed. People like me are a rarity who haul themselves out at 5:30 and trot off to the studio, and just clean their teeth and have a quick shave on the way, find a clean shirt. We're quite a rare beast now. At one time, we were quite common, a bit like the buffalo. Everybody's being shot down, except for just a few that have hung on. So do be careful when you go out, though, that there is black ice. And that's the worst sort because you can't see it. And what it does is it makes you slip all over the place. Now, Mark Paton is ready to join me. I'll just go through 1 or 2 other things before he does. One of the things that really is worrying is that the pubs may not be able to reopen until July. And I think that will be the end of the pub as we know it, if that's the case. A lot of them will shut down, because a lot of them are owned by entrepreneurs, by small businessmen who just simply can't keep going. And the big breweries won't want to take over that many. So the English pub, I think, is on the way out. And it is a great pity because along with the post box, the phone box and the London bus, all red, they are iconic and very attractive to people from overseas. And last but not least is dear old Facebook has rejected the term Devil's Dyke, a beauty spot just outside Brighton. The algorithm thinks that it's a naughty word. Tut, 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 tut. I mean, where are we being taken by these computers? They'll soon be actually telling us how to live. Oh, I've got hooked up on my own. There we go. And that's going to be awful. Right. Mark Paton is here. It's 8 o'clock. We shall join him. Good morning, Mark.
Good
There we
morning,
are.
Keith. How are you?
That little screen has been busy this morning because we had Jane Watkins on, and she gave us a little bit of a background to her program, and also she's a lady who laughs a lot, which is great, and she gave some advice on how not to be lonely. But now you're a bit more serious than that. Well, sometimes you are. That's when you're not taking the mickey out of me. So what have we got in the news this morning that's caught your eye?
Well, today I thought I would make an attempt to find as many good news stories, positive stories as possible, but it's actually quite a hard task. I suppose probably the best one of the lot is the fact that the coronavirus vaccine is being rolled out at a tremendous rate. Almost 500,000 people got it yesterday. We're probably the best in Europe, just behind, well, Israel isn't in Europe, although it is if you're doing the Eurovision Song Contest. So it is great news, and maybe for the first time ever, the government are going to hit their targets. So instead of over-promising and under-delivering, whoever did the figures on this looks like they might have got it right. In comparison to some other countries, I read, I think it was on Saturday, that Britain vaccinated in 2 days what France has done since they've had the access to the vaccine. So we're doing sort of 400,000 plus, almost 500,000. The French have done in total about 800,000. They haven't hit 1 million. So it's an extraordinary, dare I say, failure on behalf of the French. And when I dug into it a little bit more, allegedly the whole European fiasco, if you like, of not getting enough vaccine, which does seem to be true, and the Germans went round the side to get extra for themselves, is that the French wanted to get their own vaccine approved, so that would obviously do very well. So a very nationalistic approach. And also there is an issue perhaps with the vials, because the vials aren't made in the EU. This is one of the reasons why there are delays, and it was cited this was to do with the Pfizer vaccine. So because the vials to put the vaccine in aren't European, then is causing a slowdown, which is pretty much a bureaucratic, crazy red tape situation, which we're all used to, whether it's orchestrated by Britain and some of the mess that's happening with, or large mess that's happening right now with Brexit or with Europe. What do you think of this nationalistic type of approach that perhaps the French took, Keith?
Well, I mean, I wonder if it's any different to the nationalistic approach that Mrs. Sturgeon is taking in Scotland, your home and native land, because she's threatening to call an election and if she wins it, it'll be on the mandate that they leave, they become independent. And she was on this. Well, I ran a clip this morning. In fact, shall I run it for you? And you can. This is on COVID, and you can see what you think.
In order to reduce the risk of more of this strain being imported into Scotland, we intend to maintain a strict travel ban between Scotland and the rest of the UK. Unfortunately, and I am genuinely sorry about this, that ban will remain in place right throughout the festive period. We simply cannot risk more of this new strain entering the country if we can possibly avoid it. That means people from Scotland not visiting other parts of the UK and vice versa. Cross-border travel for all but the most essential purposes is not permitted.
Now, I mean, it's the language there, Scotland and the rest of the UK, etc., even though she's talking about COVID. And you ask about the French nationalistic approach, but isn't it true that no matter what you belong to, if you are personally under threat, you run and look after yourself and you forget the organisation?
I think that's perfectly true. I don't know how the EU comes together properly. You know, as I think we've said in previous broadcasts, they share the euro, they share the monetary the money side of things, but only the currency, and they don't have the rest of it to go with it. So it's pretty tricky. But yeah, the SNP by nature, Scottish National Party, are pursuing a nationalistic agenda, and I reckon that when they have their elections shortly, they will sweep the boards, and they'll have another referendum whether Boris likes it or not. I think it's, from all that I've read, the people want to be independent. She'll easily win that with a good majority. I think it was sort of 51-49 last time against, but the practicalities of doing it don't seem to be that simple. Like, which currency are you going to use? Is the EU going to want you back in? And you're also giving up. You are a smaller nation that is giving or ceding power to Europe with not a lot of clout at the table. So it's odd in some ways that you want to be a free, independent country, and yet you're willing to put yourself under the control of Brussels, Strasbourg, as opposed to what you would cite under the control of Westminster.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I spent quite a bit of time in Northern Ireland, and I have friends there. And from time to time, I get emails where they want to discuss what's happening with the Irish border. And they really feel very, very keenly that a hard Irish border was a real problem. But presumably, if Scotland go, it will be a hard Scottish border. I mean, you can't go and join the EU and then say everything is as it was yesterday. I mean, Bernier made in his negotiations with us made it quite plain that no, you leave and you don't get any of our benefits. It hasn't worked out quite that way, but nonetheless, that sort of border. Are the Scots going to be happy with that?
I think they probably will. Remember, they have got a border. They have got Hadrian's Wall already, which was built by the Italians. So maybe they just need to fortify that a little bit, and that'll be fine. I mean, I think that when at Christmas, Nicola Sturgeon said the border's shut between Scotland and England, you can't come in because of COVID, and I think she probably loved saying that. That would just have been manna from heaven to be able to say the English couldn't come in. But of course, a lot of the people who were wanting to cross the border were Scottish people going home for Christmas. So the chances were you might get turned around by the Dumfries and Galloway police as you enter on the A74. So, but yes, the newspapers were full of a lot of the breakup of the Union. I honestly don't know how you hold it together. If Scotland wants to go, do you know what? Go. I'm not sure. As we said, economically, they take more of the public purse than we do in England. So they're going to have to make up that deficit. So how are they going to make up that deficit? They don't have their own currency. They're not going to get back into the EU straight away. It's going to be an interesting sort of conundrum for them once they get their way. And how's Europe going to, who they've asked to keep the lights on, how's Europe going to deal with it? I mean, do you think the EU are going to want Scotland in?
Well, what I find is unusual, I think, Mark, and I'd like your opinion on this, is that beneath the surface, people are saying that there are other EU countries that are now, having seen us out, want to go themselves. And it would be strange for Scotland to try and get in just at the time when other people are leaving. And I would have thought that they would have wanted to take a very close look at that, is why are you leaving? If you just join something on principle, come what may, you're going to face trouble.
Yeah, I guess they think they probably will get a whole host of grants and subsidies and all the rest of it to help them. And maybe that will be the case. But I think it's going to be they're also going to, of course, going to have to take the euro in theory. So it'll be the pound sterling before they get in, and then they'll be moving over to the euro. So it's very difficult. It's like it hasn't been thought through properly. But on the other hand, the Remainers would say the same of the Brexiteers, that you didn't think this through properly. But as we're finding out, some things are a mess. Like the whole transportation thing and the extra form filling on the EU side is going to cause us a problem, or probably is causing us a problem now, and it's causing a problem on this side. It'll take some time to sort out.
Well,
so
what some people would say,
the trouble with newspapers is that they crank everything up.
Sorry, yeah, I think some people would say that nothing gets done if you don't actually move on passion and emotion. If you think things through, you stop, never do anything. It's better to do things with passion and then figure out how you're going to handle it, rather than figure out how you're going to handle it and never see the passion. But then that's a philosophical debate. Let's just take a look at one of our supporters, Mark, and then we'll come back and have another little chat about various things.
My name's Yad and welcome to my shop, Bell & Co. We specialise in mid-century furniture, 50s, 60s and 70s mainly. One of our main ethoses here is very much encouraging people to look at older pieces of furniture rather than buying new or buying flat pack. We're very much environmentally based in trying to encourage people to reuse and reimagine objects, and so we spend a lot of time restoring pieces, reupholstering pieces and bring them back to life generally. They're just fantastic to look at, and they're just beautiful items at really, really affordable prices.
Now, Mark, I'm going to show you what was happening in the north of England yesterday, and I think that it's going to add to complications all the way around. We've been threatened with it here, but it hasn't happened. Pretty harsh stuff. In your opinion, I mean, we're being dealt a very heavy hand. We've got COVID, we've just left the EU, and now we're going to have one of the harshest winters we've had in a long time. Two things. First of all, what do you think that's going to have on our social approach to things? And secondly, what sort of additions will it have to us having a difficult economy?
Well, but it can happen. I mean, historically, the bad weather has, especially the snow, can have a massive effect on people's immediate lives. I mean, obviously, because we're living in odd times now, because people aren't traveling around as much, so it's actually going to have less effect than normal. We didn't get it here really down in Sussex or as far south as you and I are. I know in Kent, I saw pictures of some pretty substantial amounts of the snow, even maybe with the police issuing fines if you were throwing snowballs or not social distancing. But I don't think it's going to have the sort of normal effect. And at the end of the day, winter happens every year, and it gets cold. It's become much more of a news story than it was before. We're not prepared for massive amounts of snow because we don't get it that often. So, if you compare that to, if you go to Switzerland, then they will have lots of snow clearing equipment there all year round. But, we would use it for a week or something. They also all run on, I think it's law that in Switzerland they all use snow tires. I mean, I've hired a car with snow tires and without snow tires, and the difference, or this is in Switzerland, the difference is like night and day. between what you can do and what you can't do. So people here on what are summer tires when it snows are it's hopeless. But are you going to encourage everyone to move over to winter tires for the few times that it would happen? I don't know. I mean, there is actually a crossover tire called a 4-season tire, and that actually will give you almost as good grip as you get in summer and masses more in the winter. But I've actually fitted them to my car because I think it makes sense. But very few people actually put it on or put on another tire.
Is that because of cost?
No, they cost about the same. I've got ones called Michelin Cross Climate, and they cost roughly about the same. They're about £100, which is the same as you would pay for a normal branded Pirelli or Continental or whatever. So there's not really any difference in cost.
And I suppose flooding again.
If you want one that flooding is a huge problem, and that for some people who were flooded out a few months ago, and the defences have been breached again. I mean, it's a real failure of planning and execution. I mean, it pretty much beggars belief that they can't get this right. They've got the time to fix it. The money's probably already been spent, but who knows, spent in the wrong way, no doubt.
Yeah. It's going to cost you £300 to throw a snowball, by the way. You mentioned snowballing. They're fining people £300 for snowballing and for using a sledge.
Well, I noticed that they were down. I don't know if it was in Cornwall, which is one of the big surfing areas in the UK, and they were checking to see whether cars had come from so far afield, so it would be outside of their normal exercise zone. And I actually came along the front at Brighton, just near the sort of power station bit, took over the lock, and I have never seen so many people surfing in my life, probably anywhere actually. There were like hundreds of people literally in the water, little dots. We didn't see any police there rounding up or taking numbers.
Yeah.
But it would be a cold day yesterday to be getting in the sea, even in your wetsuit. I don't. Do you surf, Keith?
You know me and water. It dilutes the alcohol. I don't go anywhere near it. Actually, strangely enough, virtually the only time that I've ever tried surfing was in northern Cornwall at a place called Polzeath. And the little bay there allows the waves, not huge surfing waves, but enough to be a gentle surfer. And that satisfied my desire.
I've tried it as well, but in Cornwall, but I couldn't stand up on the board. It's very frustrating. I can stand up on a windsurfing board, but that's, I think, a lot more stable.
I can't even lie down on the board. I'd like your comment on something else, Mark, because in a few minutes we'll let you loose on the papers. But here's something to take a look at.
There's no sound with this one.
No. You just have to watch him muted. We're probably the only people in the world that have managed that. But I've shown him because I'd like your opinion. I was talking to a couple of our American colleagues, and of course we tend to say her over here about some things, but he sort of uttered threats against those Republicans that he feels abandoned him at the time that he was trying hard to retain the American presidency, and sort of we're going to get you, thug-like type things. I mean, what do you think is going to happen with this man? He's not going to disappear quietly, is he?
No, it's not within the nature of Donald Trump to disappear quietly. I think Funnily enough, one of the stories I've got is basically about the whole impeachment thing, and is it actually is it worth it to go through all of this? And obviously the Democrats are quite keen on it, but there is a downside in that it's going to deflect from the start of Biden's presidency, and it will drag on, and Trump will use it as a soundboard to say all the rest of this sort of falsehoods, etc. But if the Republican Party want to stop him causing devastation and starting his own party, then they have to try and bar him from office. The only thing of that is that they might manage to bar him from office, but what about Donald Trump Jr. or one of the children, one of the other ones? I think, is it Ivanka? Is that his daughter, or is that his first wife? I can't remember now. But there are other members of the family who probably would quite like to have a pop at the presidency. And then maybe if they do that, they can get Donald out of jail if he ends up in jail. But there's quite a mess going on behind the scenes, and
I think so.
I think revenues are down dramatically with Trump, although he would never admit that. But I think the Republicans will probably, the signs are that they'll go after him. McConnell, the leader of the Republican House side of things, he's not averse to having a go, and they're going to have to stand up this time and take a big, bold decision, which they weren't willing to do when Trump was coming up with all these allegations that have, were wafer thin, straw man. Is that the right term?
Yes.
There's no substance to what he was saying whatsoever.
Yeah. One of the things that is amazing me, and it may be that I'm putting the wrong slant on it, because as you know, as journalists, we can look at things in half a dozen different ways, and none of them are right and none of them are wrong. But Joe Biden, I mean, getting rid of Churchill's statue, well, that's fine, but he's replaced it with Che Guevara, who one of the darlings of the 60s and the 70s, the Cuban Revolution, and so on. And also, there's another lady who was an activist, pretty heavy anti-government, and he's put her photograph in the Oval Office. I mean, is he just being perverse, or is there does Biden have a real left-wing tendency?
I don't think he's got a left-wing tendency at all. The statue that was replaced, I don't think, did you say Che Guevara?
Yeah.
I don't think it's Che Guevara. I think it's somebody else. It's Cesar Chavez, who is a Mexican socialist, apparently.
Well, the reports that I got were that it was Che Guevara, and in fact, the reporter gave quite an interesting description about the end of Che Guevara, because I can remember in my university days, as I didn't. Because I was a fairly neutral character. I must have been very dull in my university days. But every student had a poster of Che Guevara up on the wall.
Yeah.
And,
they did, and they still do. But if you look here, is this guy who? It's Cesar Chavez.
Chavez. Now, yes, he's the president of, is it Bolivia or one of the South American countries, is he not? I showed my ignorance about South America.
I think he was a firebrand Latino Union leader. I would imagine it's quite an old, I don't know how old Cesar Chavez was or is.
All right.
He's not somebody I think I'd ever really heard of before. But I think that if it had been Che Guevara, I think that would have probably caused a bit of a revolution, to be honest.
Yeah, apparently, though, Guevara ended in Bolivia, and he was executed there with the help, I may say, of the CIA. And it took 20 years to discover his grave, and he was a broken man when they actually captured him. And perhaps it's just as well that his end isn't spoken about a great deal, because it would have taken away the hero aspect of this revolutionary who tried to stir up revolutions wherever he could. Anyway, I just thought that it was interesting. But now it's 8:25. Let me play one more commercial, and when we come out of that, perhaps you'd like to take over and talk through the papers and your viewpoint on what's happening in the world. Our good friend Mick Symes this morning started off Lewis Present by saying some good news for once, and apparently we're doing very well in the cricket in Sri Lanka. So it was a little beacon in a very dour morning.
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewis.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
Right, Mr. Paton, sir. What about the stuff in the papers this morning that caught your eye?
Well, the Guardian is leading with the story that the schools are not going to be back in situation until after Easter, which, as we know, is the first week of April. It's certainly causing a lot of disturbance for people. More homeschooling, which seems to be incredibly difficult. There aren't enough computers to go around. A lot of family houses. It's ridiculously difficult all round, and children's education is suffering. I don't really know what the answer to it is, because the new variety of COVID runs its ferociously through people. With its larger infection rate, and now of course they're saying that it has a higher, probably a slightly higher death rate. It's still pretty, the whole death rate thing is low, and as we may have commented before, that the new Kent variety of the virus is 50% or 55% more infectious. That's much, much worse than if it was 55% more deadly, because the number of people who die is like 5 times greater when the infection rate is 50% higher. So yeah, it's a real mess. The other story that is highlighted in the Daily Mail, if I can get the Daily Mail's front page to appear, is that there's a strong possibility that your holiday is not going to happen quite in the way that you wanted, because there's going to be an Australia-style 10-day quarantine when you come back. So that is, as the Daily Mail rather positively puts it, summer holidays strapped. So happy days ahead. The good news, the only good news I can see in the Daily Mail's front page is the fact that the infections are coming down. Maybe the deaths have peaked. So those are that's as good as it gets on the Daily Mail.
I understand that
summer holiday.
I don't recognise the word holiday. But my daughter, who checks in from Northern Ireland just to make sure I haven't fallen downstairs and broken my neck, insists that I should actually take one. But I understand that if you go abroad now and you come back, and I assume it'll be the same for holidays, is that you go into a hotel to self-isolate, you have to pick up the bill yourself. You're not put into you may be put into a hotel forcibly, but nobody's forcing the government to pay the bill. You pay it.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and it sort of makes sense in a way. If you're going to go away on holiday, then that is the downside of going away on holiday. I mean, there is a little bit of a backlash against the various influencers, most of whom appear to have started their media careers on Love Island, because what they do is they disappear out to Dubai, seems to be the favourite one, and appear cavorting around on beaches and all the rest of it. And this is put down as being a business trip, which is rather lovely if you happen to be a 25 or a 30-year-old whose job is to appear in the newspapers wearing as little as possible or exposing your six-pack. I'm not sure when the last time you or I had a six-pack was, Keith. Do you remember?
As a matter of fact, I mean, to be quite serious about holidays, is I never took too many, and so since my wife died, most certainly I haven't taken any. We would take we'd take our grandsons, and we went around the Mediterranean, and I love Sorrento in Italy. We'd go there fairly frequently. But holidays are something that I haven't enjoyed for quite some time. And I'm happy to say that if I'd put my money away now, I could have gone to Blackpool for a day and then spent 2 weeks in a hotel self-isolating. But I just want to show you this, Mark, and then I want your comment on this, because to me, if there is one of the worst things that could possibly happen out of this is...
Brown has written more than half a dozen books on pubs and beer. He says there's a lot at stake here.
I think pubs are an essential factor in British life. I think it defines...
For centuries, pubs have been a place to mingle, read a book, and these days, even take the kids.
The British have everything about the pub is micro-engineered to break down those social barriers and to enable people to talk to each other.
Are you comfy? Because you wanted a chair, didn't you, darling?
Roxy Beaujolais,
this place fits all types,
has presided at her pub, the Seven Stars, for 20 years.
Well, now I hadn't realised that the soundtrack had stayed on that from the American lady who was taking a look at it. But the reason that I've shown it is that they now say that it's going to be July before pubs will open. And in some ways, it's not just that I can say poor publicans, which I do, because a lot of them are entrepreneurs, but also poor us, because even though that item suggested that pubs were on the way out, they have remained a very important part of our lives and the social centre of villages and towns. So what's your view about the impact of the loss of pubs on what's happening with COVID?
Well, it's going to accelerate the loss of pubs, which I mean, it's been happening for a long time, and with the number of pubs closing, I can't remember what the figures are, but they are pretty dramatic. And obviously, if you own and run a village pub, then if you go to some place like Barkham or Ringmer or Lawton, all around Lewis, then there's some great pubs there, but they end up being destination pubs. So they've got to have something really special to bring you in. Which is either the pub itself, I guess, has to be special, or you have the most fantastic food, so that they're sort of turning into restaurants. I think it's an incredibly difficult time for them, and it's a shame, because all of these individual places, I think, ultimately will be bought up by the big boys. Now, whether it's Weatherstones or there will be some vulture capitalists who will come in and start snapping up these pubs, and then we'll have the McDonald's of pubs, where every pub looks the same. Although I think, actually that's probably being unfair, because restaurants, I think even McDonald's make some restaurants now. Not that I've been in one for a long time. But yeah, I think it's a huge shame. I mean, the whole social fabric of these places is going down the tubes. But I know that, for instance, there's a little village called Alborn. I don't know if you know Alborn at all, Keith.
I don't.
Okay, it's just a little bit beyond me coming away from Lewis and here in Hurstpier Point. It's between Hurstpier Point and Henfield. And I believe that on a Friday night, then the villagers will, obviously pre-COVID, will get together in the village centre and they'll run a pop-up pub. So the locals will come in, they'll serve the beer, and obviously some will come in and drink the beer. So I mean that's a great thing. And over here, of course, we have another brewery called, I think it's Dark Star, who are based in Partridge Green, and they serve a lot of or supply a lot of the beer in and around this area. But yeah, it is a bit of a disaster. It's a sign of the times with independent shops going out of business. And it does hasten the end of that hastens the end of the high street, just as the pub also is in a dire strait.
So great changes in our society after we managed to get out onto the street again.
Yeah, it's going to make a massive difference. I mean, I think people are desperate to get out. You know, if you buy all the time, you know, the weekend, what all the things you'd normally do are obviously gone. And when we come out of lockdown, the pub also will potentially be gone, which is a great shame. We'll just have to drink champagne and oysters.
Well, there we are. I'm not going to suffer then. Actually, one of the serious things is, Mark, when I was 16, and you first venture into a pub, or you did in those days, between 16 and 18, I did develop a very nice taste for English bitter. But then I started to travel, and I went around the world where the only thing that you could get were various shades of lager. And now I cannot get back to the taste of bitter because I had, by circumstance, I've been forced to drink lager for years and years and years. I really can't get back to the taste of bitter, and I wish I could, but I can't. And I think that perhaps I don't know whether the English bitter is going to be a victim of COVID.
I hope not. I think it would be a great shame, and there's a massive number of microbreweries that have started. How they're going to be affected by COVID, of course, if they need outlets to make that work. But I think there's a new one coming into Lewis. The name escapes me now. And if you go to the States, the whole microbrewery thing is huge, because people don't want necessarily to go in and to buy a Budweiser or a Heineken or what would be the Watney's. I think you referenced a while ago the Watney's used to do, was it a 7-pint keg that you used to take to parties?
It's filthy, wasn't it?
I don't know. I used to. I think we had. It was tartan bitter. Well, it wasn't bitter. It was called. In Scotland, they call it heavy, and they denote the strength of it by the number of shillings it has. So you get 70 shilling, 80 shilling, or 90 shilling, which is much stronger. I don't know what 90 shilling would be. Sort of a 7 or 8% beer. So it was pretty strong. But if you go to, I mean, France do a lot of, and Belgium with all the Trappist beers. I mean, they do huge numbers of dark beers, which are really good. But one of the best ones I ever came across, we did a trip down to Le Mans once, and on draft we got this beer which also had whiskey in it. And it was a really nice mix. Now the name escapes me, and there are several varieties of it actually that you could get in the supermarket. But on draft, it was fantastic.
Well, there's an investigative story for you. You find out for us what the name of it was. It's funny how your taste can be tainted, if that's the right word, from early experiences. I had my first Guinness in Canada, and I had it in they didn't serve it in the pubs, in the beer parlors. They only served it in the cocktail lounges, and it was in a bottle. and it was imported, and they put something preservative into it, and it was the filthiest tasting thing that you ever tasted. And to this day, I will drink a pint of Guinness, but I'm really very careful about how much I have and so on, because I remember this foul taste from 30 or 40 years ago. Is that the beer that we're talking about?
Well, that is one of them. That's not the one I had on draft, but I think I bought that before. Adelscott beer with, well, actually, it's got malt whiskey in it. I mean, it has got a pretty immense kick to it. It's and on draft, it went, well, after 2 pints, it was quite difficult to walk.
Oh yeah, well, that sounds like a good beer. Right, we'll just take a break, and then we'll come back and hear some more from you.
From Capturing Tales, and we've been open here for about 2.5 years. We specialise in focaccia genovese, which is this focaccia, like that. And my mum and I went to Italy, to Genova, to learn to make focaccia, which is an ancient art. Then we do little salad pots, sauces, fresh pasta, stuff to take home and cook. We try to get locally to support other local businesses. We have a few cocktails in bottles, which is why we're called Catcher and Tales. We're open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. To come by and see us anytime.
Okay, Mark. What else has caught your eye this morning?
Well, one of the good news stories that I saw rather oddly has come from China, which is not where we're sort of given to the news story would come from, but they have managed to rescue the
miners.
Managed to, the 11 of the gold miners they brought to the surface. Very strange to see these men being brought out with wearing masks over their head and over their mouths. They had thought it would take sort of 2.5 weeks to get them out. But if you look at this diagram, it's like, they were down thousands and thousands of feet under the earth. I mean, when you look at it, it's pretty scary. I mean, there's the lowest limit down there at 600 meters, and then a little bit further up, we've got what people. And I think they've managed to drill a hole and to get down and to bring them to safety. It wasn't helped overly, I don't think, by the fact that they, when the disaster first happened, the local authorities didn't report it, and they tried to sort it out themselves. So they lost some time, which seems to be what people do in authority. We saw it in Wuhan, where they tried to suppress the fact that this disease was transmittable between people. And the WHO, I think, is in Wuhan, probably quarantining before they can start to come out with or to try to establish the facts of what actually happened. So do you have any examples of power being mishandled whilst you were working abroad, Keith?
Oh yes, a lot of them. I mean, perhaps the most startling, I suppose, is that I was in Romania from December 2005. I went there for a brief visit, and then went and lived there for 1.5 years on a mission. I came home from time to time, but I was living there. And the Romania were allowed into the EU on the basis that they would tackle corruption, and that they had at the head I forget which ministry she was, but Home Affairs, I suppose, a lady called Monica Macovei. And at the moment that after 2 or 3 months having gained entry to the EU, they sacked her. And the Prime Minister, who was a supporter, said, "Hey, you can't do that." And the Prime Minister said, "Oh, yes, we can." And they called a referendum to try and sack the president. And the referendum called for 50% plus one to sack him. And it became obvious that the government were losing the referendum. So they went into a hotel room and called a cabinet meeting and changed the constitution so that they could win. And they went back onto the hustings, and it was still obvious they were going to lose. So they went into a hotel room again and changed the constitution a second time to try and help themselves, and they still lost. But I mean, abuse of power in that sense, and it isn't widely known. But in the 2006, 2007, 2008, they were still actually funneling journalists towards prison if they didn't like them. And there was another famous occasion where one television station, being very daring, actually got secret footage of the agricultural minister taking a bribe and stuffing it into his briefcase, and away he went. And the reaction of the government was they passed a law to say that sort of footage could never be shown on television. So those are the sort of things where they really do clamp down. The other thing that I did come across, which is a bit more sinister, was in Kosovo, and I like Kosovars. I like the country, and I stay in touch. And I know the former ambassador here, and we regularly exchange emails. But there was I only can remember her first name, and that was Fatima. And she was a tiny little lady, and about only 23, 24, and she was a terrier. She was one of the best investigative journalists I've ever come across. And they locked her out of any press conferences for the finance ministry because she was uncovering all sorts of things. And she was eventually shot. Now, not fatally, but she was shot. And there is no question where the attack came from. So those things still go on. And in talking about the EU, it is interesting that quietly the investigative units for media have been looking at places like Slovenia and Poland, who signed up to freedom of the press and have slowly been backsliding. And of course, we've seen it in Hungary as well. So by no means all the things we take for granted are in place around the world. And there are nasty people who are trying very hard to take away the freedoms which we enjoy.
Right. I mean, there was an interesting one with France, where they were going to pass a law to stop you filming policemen. And this was because the policemen could then be identified and then harassed at home, etc. But the flip side of that was that it meant that the French police don't seem to have a particularly good reputation with their public. The flip side was that they could beat people up, and it wasn't legal to film that happening.
Yeah.
I think it actually didn't pass, but it struck me as a pretty extraordinary sort of event. I can understand that, if a policeman is going about his duty, then to get harassed at home is an intolerable situation. I don't know how you get around it, but the flip side of that is obviously that they could beat people up, and there are no consequences. It reminds me of also when you were talking about the corruption, that there was I don't know if it was broken by the Fancy Bears, who are the sort of Russian group who've hacked into the records of the Olympic Association and all the medical side of things, but they exposed various people as being cheating at drugs or having some pretty dubious practices. And the first thing that Lord Coe appeared to say was that he was annoyed that the information had got out. And how did this leak appear? It wasn't anything to do with the fact that, oh my goodness, look at all these people who've been doing possibly bad things. It was like, oh, how did that leak appear? Which was a ridiculous sort of thing. It beggared belief, and he went down in my estimation. But of course, he sits in the House of Lords, rather. I mean, it's amazing.
Everyone's view, you can have a go at the establishment until you become part of it, and then you change your view entirely when you suddenly realize all the benefits. It's amazing, and that goes for any sort of politician. But just casting back to France, and I don't know how many years ago it was now, because I've known this story for quite some time, but the French banned any reportage of ministers, cabinet ministers' private lives. And there was one very prominent minister where the rumors started that he was having an affair with a colleague's wife. And he went to the press and he said, look, this is scandalous. I'm not. Please, will you run a story to say that I'm not having an affair with this woman and it's damaging my reputation? They said, sorry, Gov, we can't. You told us not to.
Well, I think it's where if a British politician basically is exposed of having an affair, it's quite often the end of their career. But in France, I think you seem to get applauded for that almost. They have a very different reaction to these things. And in America too, probably. I mean, Donald Trump survived, was it Busty Daniels, I think her name was, and then there was another lady, a playmate, who he used to hang around with. And Bill
the love life
Clinton
of a good many presidents in the United States is, which has never come out until after they've left office or died, is enormous. I mean, Clinton, the Kennedys, you name it. They had wonderful times playing around. Shall we just, because we're running close to where we're coming out, I can't remember which person we gave a little plug to a moment ago, but
Roundabout has been going for 35 years. We're a dress agency, so what we do is we sell on behalf of people. The customer gets 50% of the price and we take 50%. The online shop is roundaboutlewis.com. I try and update it, daily when things come in. We're open Tuesday to Saturday, 9:30 till 4:30. So if you're looking for gifts or a dress for yourself, why not visit?
Okay, it's 7 minutes till the end of the program. So just before we go back to you, Mark, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Lewis, but let's remind people what's happening in many parts of the country.
What they're doing? He's been stuck or what?
Okay, well, it hasn't reached us, and hopefully, a little sprinkling of snow would probably be welcome. But as they say in the entertainment world, Mark, there's 6 minutes to go, so take us home.
Take us home, okay. Well, I think this next story is pretty amazing. This is about the Russian Navale, the guy who was poisoned by the Russian authorities, it appears, then went to get his treatment in Germany, and he's flown back into Russia to be arrested. There have been some pretty big protests in several places in Russia about his imprisonment. Tens of thousands defied a heavy police presence, it says. His wife was arrested. I don't know whether she's been released now or whether she's still in custody, but I think it's an extraordinarily brave thing to do, to be poisoned and then to go back. I mean, obviously he must feel, Navalny must feel that they won't kill him because it would cause too much of a furore through Western governments and all the rest of it. But even with the backing and the thought that that would happen, to me, that's just extraordinary and amazing. That is bravery. Unlike bravery is a term that seems to be used quite frequently, and I'm not always convinced that it is things are brave. But this strikes me as being extraordinary. What do you think, Keith?
Well, it is quite interesting because the general rule in former Iron Curtain countries, CIS, and I came across this particularly in Serbia, is if you want to be a tycoon and you want to make a lot of money, that's fine. The government will turn a blind eye to almost anything that you do. But if you tamper in politics, they come and they get you. And I won't mention the name of the tycoon that I knew in Serbia because the family is still around and I wouldn't want to put them in any sort of harm. But he owned banks, television stations, mortgage companies, you name it, filthy rich. And they said, we will let you get on with all this as long as you don't actually enter politics. And he formed his own political party. And he is not in Serbia anymore. He's in exile. And he has to be in exile, not just in the West. He has to be in exile in a particular country in case they get him. So this sort of rule of thumb is those people who break it know what they're doing. Whether they do it because they think that they can actually get into power in politics or break the mold, or whether it's just simply because they recognize that as a tycoon, the other area of wealth is politics. And I have no idea. But I don't think that any of it is ever tagged as a bravery in the same sense that you would use it.
Yes, it's pretty amazing. I mean, the whole way that Putin has operated, has lengthened his term in office, etc. But we're not averse to having. I think it was the Irish Taoiseach was. I can't remember which one it was. He was around 10, 15 years ago, and he apparently didn't have a bank account. So everything he dealt with was not traceable. So he must have used other people by proxy to put his money in. But this was, this wasn't. 100 years ago, you would have had a bank account if you were the Taoiseach, and yet there we are, sort of 10, 15 years ago. Do you remember which one it was?
No, I don't. And if it was 10 or 15 years ago, I would have been out of really following Irish politics. And then, I'm trying to think who was Taoiseach. But we better be careful. We might name the wrong guy.
Well, no, I'm just having a quick look. He has passed away. I don't know how the libel laws work. If people are dead, can you? Is that still defamation to their estate or something?
It could easily be to the family. If I think probably if they decide to have a go at you, I mean, in many ways, libel is very much a civil thing. If you call somebody something and they don't like it, they'll sue you. I mean, it's much the same as the argument about what you can take for photography that is banned and not banned. And in fact, if you take a picture of somebody in the street, there's nothing that anybody can do to stop you. The only thing that the policeman can do is he can arrest you for if it's national security. But if you lean over the fence and take a picture of the same people on their property, they most certainly can go after you. So I think probably that libel is the same. It depends who or what and how you infringed.
Yeah. Well, here it is in the Irish Times. Bertie Ahern said that he didn't open a bank account until after he was separated from his wife in 1987. So it's very, very strange.
As I remember, he was a very soft-spoken man, Bertie Hare. I do know that I never met him, but I was in sort of either a press conference or some sort of situation where he was there and speaking. Very interesting. Right, well, Mark, we are bang on 9 o'clock. So if we can do a quick recap. As far as Lewis is concerned, we are pleased that the English cricket team are doing well in Sri Lanka. As far as our northern colleagues and fellow members of the community are concerned, we are sorry about their snow. And as far as we know, the pubs won't open again until July. And that indeed is sad for everybody. So thank you for joining me, and thanks for dissecting the news for this hour. And I hope that we brought some information to some people. And in the early part, having Jane Watkins around a little smile to their lips. See you tomorrow. Doodle pip.
Goodbye.